Thanks again for joining us. Today I'm going to be talking about this thing that happens at end of life right before somebody dies where they are reaching out into the air. So I'm going to talk about what we think it means and why it should provide you some comfort if and when you do see it. My name is Abigail. I'm here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life. Let's get into it today. I love these kinds of topics because it just, I think, gives us a little bit more information, a little bit of insight into what may be happening to that person who is dying. So today what I'm going to be talking about is something that happens really kind of right before death, usually hours to a day or maybe a day or two from my experience. And a person can be, usually they've been in a state where they are probably in bed for some period of time, whether it's hours, days, weeks, maybe even months. And they're continuing to decline and getting really closer to death. So this is something that we really see that is actually one of the signs that tells us not only is something maybe comforting, hopefully happening, but that somebody is really nearing death. So what I mean, and in my stories that I have seen as myself as a nurse at the bedside, or I've heard many stories of also my staff telling me about these, especially when we did our whole group bereavement in our weekly meetings. We did stories like this pretty frequently, and it's just something that is just so common, I think, for hospice workers to see and experience. But usually this person who has, who's gotten really weak, who's usually been staying in bed for a certain amount of time, they start to, in this kind of really diminished state of theirs, where they have been unconscious, they start to reach one hand out, maybe even both hands out into the air. And it may just be a little bit, and sometimes I've seen patients actually reach, way above their head. And their eyes may be just like a little slightly open. That's something that is actually very common at end of life. The eye muscles start to relax, but their eyes may be a little bit open. And the reason why I find this really comforting is because it's often accompanied by them talking to you, but it may not sound like talking to you, but it may be like a little whisper. It could be a very weak type of voice that you may hear from that person because, they're declining, they're much weaker, they're in a weakened state, and they may use certain endearing terms that the family may know. They may hear like the word mama, and that might be the word for their grandmother, or Mima, whatever it is, or, cookie for a niece or whatever that has already died. And they're basically talking to someone that has already died and using those terms, saying things, oh, hi, mama, I see you. I saw mama a lot. People, for some reason, it seems like their moms kind of come around. I've seen people also talk to their spouses who have already died, and that was really cool. And what I want to say is remind you that, first of all, this is a sign that usually meaning that they're going to die soon. So, if you are deciding about when to get other family members in who want to see the person before they die, that's kind of a really definite signal that someone's going to die soon. But the other thing that I really think is really special is, I think, personally, based on my experience and just seeing it so many times, hearing about it so many times, us in the hospice world, and I'm speaking kind of generally, but we like to think of this as a really comforting sign because then it shows us that maybe this person really isn't alone in this whole process. Somebody, their loved one that has already died is with them and is going to guide them so that they won't be alone when they die. And I just find this as one of the most comforting things that I think anybody could see. And don't worry if you don't see it. Don't worry if you miss it, because it could happen. I truly believe it could happen in many different varying degrees. It could happen in a split second, maybe when you leave the room. It could happen in a really, in a much softer way, where someone may be communicating or seeing somebody that they loved, and maybe the signs, aren't completely like overt, in the way I'm showing you. But I really find it to be an extremely comforting thing to see, and especially when loved ones tell me about this, I say, oh, this is amazing. Tell me more about this Mima person they mentioned. And they said, oh, well, that was so-and-so and so-and-so. And, it was such a whatever, blah, blah, blah. And, and then we kind of explore the idea of, this is something that we've seen before. This is what we think. What do you think? So if anything, I think it provides a sense of comfort. And it's one of the many reasons why I believe that there's something a little bit more beyond the time of death than nothing. So that's based on my experience and what I've seen out there. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have other stories. I'm sure going to be sharing other stories too as we continue to do this. All right, talk to you soon. Have a good day. Take care.